It's a 10-second silent video from a New Mexico State Police office that speaks volumes. A video obtained by KRQE Investigates from the New Mexico State Police Santa Fe District Office, dated November of 2025, shows a state police officer pull his taser, pointing it directly to the head of a fellow officer. You can see someone come into frame, pointing out the surveillance camera. The officer who pulled the taser proceeds to flip off the camera.
Obviously, there's a degree of gallows humor amongst law enforcement behind the curtain, right? But when you start talking about weapons, whether it's a taser, whether it's a handgun, that's sort of a line that doesn't get crossed.
Albuquerque attorney Thomas Grover often represents law enforcement officers. The video circulating among law enforcement, Grover says, should be taken seriously by state police.
Is there some underlying tension between the two officers? And then, as you see another officer come onto the video and point out to everybody, hey, we're under surveillance. The officer does this cavalier thing of flipping the bird at the screen. I mean, that's not good under any analysis, certainly in this day and time.
We reached out to state police, who says the matter was referred to internal affairs as the department conducted both administrative and criminal reviews of the incident. The criminal investigation found the officer holding the taser did not intend to cause harm, and state police says at no time did the other officer fear being tased, so no charges were filed, which is why we're not identifying those involved. But New Mexico State Police Chief Troy Weisler sent us a statement saying, quote, although there was no intent to cause harm, the conduct demonstrated poor judgment and is inconsistent with the professional standards of state police. He says NMSP is continuing an internal review to determine next steps. State police taser policy states officers should avoid intentionally targeting the head, neck, area of the heart, or genitals, taking into account the potential danger.
Oh, I mean, if the cartridge deployed, you're talking about lacerations to the head and then a full cycle on the taser. And then more than likely a bunch of cops fighting each other in the middle of whatever briefing room they're in. Nothing good comes from it.
State police says no one is on administrative leave pending its internal review.
It doesn't move the ball forward in terms of public's acceptance or appreciation or trust of the department, whether it's the state police as a specific agency or the profession in general.
So, Gabby, when you first watched this video of the taser incident between state police officers, I'm just wondering what alarm bells went off in your head as an investigative reporter.
Well, again, it's a 10-second video, so it happens very quickly. And right when you see the officer pull the taser and point it not only to the head of a fellow officer, but directly, like skin to skin, to his head, I think I made, a whoa face.
Right.
Then it kind of gets worse when you see another officer point out the surveillance camera in the room, and the officer who pointed the taser proceeds to give the double birds to the surveillance camera. Just, I guess, showing the lack of care for this, what you would assume is seriousness of what he had just done. That struck me immediately. But also just knowing you don't point weapons at people's heads, like
right.
Not just, even in jest. It's something that you're taught as soon as you
That's
learn
101.
Yeah, literally 101. Don't point a gun at someone unless you intend to kill them. But granted, this is a less than lethal weapon, a taser. Still, there are very strict protocols that people are trained to follow when using those less than lethal weapons, including and especially police officers.
Yeah. Now, I know some people could be watching this and say, look, boys are going to be boys, right? Officers are going to be officers. I think Attorney Grover even kind of pointed that out. Like, yeah, there is some kind of relaxed attitude around these things, right? But, and I will say the chief, he did say that the officer holding the taser they found didn't mean any harm, but we as a station still felt it was important to share this, kind of talk about that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. One could view that video and say, yeah, maybe they were just, fooling around. And this is actually a conversation, admittedly, that happened in our newsroom before we decided to air the story. There are one viewpoint of like, well, again, why does the viewer care? Me as a journalist pointing out, I think viewers would care to see how officers are treating their weapons, when they believe, they're not being watched. Well, in this case, the officer knew he was being watched. And I think that's important because would you want to be pulled over by an officer who is this cavalier with a weapon? Now, again, state police says that their investigation did not show that the person who had the weapon pointed at them felt there was a threat. But who's to say? It's
Right.
a silent video. You can't hear the words that are being said there. You don't know if there was sort of any animosity between the two officers.
Or if he just said, I didn't feel that way, to try to cover up and make sure that his buddy didn't get in trouble.
Right. And these are questions I think that are valid questions because one of the very first things I did was, look at the SOPs, the standard operating procedures for handling a taser, according to state police. And one of them explicitly says, do not point it at somebody's head, because if it were to have accidentally discharged, we're talking serious injuries.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks. I know you're going to kind of continue to follow up on that regarding the internal affairs investigation that we're still waiting on the results from. So